So first of all, thank you all for staying. Thank you all for coming to this session. My name is Michael O'Toole. As you heard yesterday, I recently joined Bright Idea as Head of Services. With me today, I have Kristen Jordan, who is our Director of Professional Services. And then I have Vanna here, who's going to be manning the microphone for us. This session is targeted to those of you that are just starting out. And I'm going to go through a little exercise in a minute, and we'll sort of figure out the level of experience of each of you. It can be a fairly dry topic. So with apologies to those of you sitting in the back, I tend to pick on people who sit in the back. So consider yourself warned. I'm going to try and make it interactive in places to make it a little bit more entertaining or a little bit more interesting as we go through. Many of the concepts that we're going to be talking about are fairly simple project management concepts, but we're putting an innovation flavor onto them. Okay? I'm going to encourage questions throughout so that we get that interaction. I want to be able to pull on the collective wisdom of the crowd that we have here in the room. So with that, before we go to the next slide, I want to tell a story. And then after the story, I'm going to get you all to stand for a minute or two. We recently, as you saw yesterday, we recently hired a new VP of Sales, Cameron. And Cameron brought in somebody to deliver sales training to our sales team and, in fact, to our services team. And I went into the sales training, and I'm like, Cameron, do I really have to go? Do you know how many times I've sat through sales training? And I'm sure some of you have the same story. So I went and sat through this sales training, and while it was very much like sales training I've had in the past, once again I took away some nuggets of information that I found to be valuable. My hope today is that while some of this may not necessarily be new to you, that you'll take away some nuggets of information that you might also find valuable. So, can I get everyone to stand, right? For the Bright Idea folks, it doesn't count. You can sit. You've been standing all day, but I want all of our customers to stand. Thank you. Okay. Take a look at that slide. Think about that for a minute. This is a quote from the World Database of Innovation. The average lifespan of an innovation team at a large company is a dismal 3.4 years. Okay. Please sit down if your team's been in existence more than 3.4 years. More, if your innovation program has been in existence more than 3.4 years. Okay. Keep standing if not. Okay. Sit down if you've been in existence more than 2 years. Okay, a couple of people sitting. More than 1 year. Sit down. Okay. Okay. What I'd like to do today is to help set some basics so that for those of you that are still standing, you don't become a statistic on this slide. That we help you drive your programs deeper into your organization so that you don't become a statistic. So thank you very much. Please sit down for a second. Okay, so top 10 tips. Are these the only tips? No, they're not. There are many different approaches to implementing innovation programs. We've got lots of people here from Bright Idea, lots of people from our customers with different levels of experience. These are just 10 fundamentals that we think are important in starting out any innovation program. My analogy today, and I thought I was using something that was fairly original, but then the guy from Lockheed stole it yesterday. So I'm like, okay, he's Lockheed, he can steal this one. Then the guy from GE stole it. So it's not very original, but my analogy today is to compare your innovation program to the US mission to put a man on the moon. Okay? So, looking around this room, most of you are way, way, way younger than I am, but I grew up as a child following that moon mission. I would watch every launch. I think for those of us that were children at the time, we became part of that. Your innovation program is just as important to your companies as the moon mission was to the United States. So anyhow, let's get going through this and we'll get into it. Okay. Tip number 1. Define the why of your program. What is the why? The why is to have a mission statement. Okay, so NASA has a mission statement. They've actually had a very similar mission statement throughout their entire existence. They recently modified it. This was their mission statement back in the 1960s. To understand and protect our home planet, to explore the universe and search for life, to inspire the next generation of explorers as only NASA can. Okay? So I want to do a little audience interaction right now. Let's see a show of hand. Who has a mission statement for their innovation program? Would you mind sharing it?
Sure. So we actually follow Simon Sinek's start with why kind of methodology. So it goes why, how, what. And that's how we build our 3-part mission statement. So the why is that we believe everybody is made for more. The mission is to inspire and empower innovation. And the what is multi-sourcing, incubation, and consulting. So
awesome.
Kind of the way that we frame it.
Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else got a mission statement they'd like to share? No hands now that they know I'm going to call upon people, right? So let's just talk a little bit about a mission statement. A mission statement defines what the program is to its customers. Okay? So who are the customers you need to consider? Who are the customers of your program? It defines what the program is going to be to its employees, right? So to the members of your team. And it also defines what the mission is going to be to its sponsors, right? So you have people that are essentially your executive sponsors. You have to define your mission statement for them. So, so we kind of went into this. So what is your mission? You need to, if you don't have a mission, okay, I encourage you to go back and to work on one. It needs to become your North Star, your guiding light for your program. And everything you do should be focused around that mission. Okay. You got a mission statement. What's next? Set clear goals and build a plan to get there. Okay. So I'm going to jump now into the moonshot metaphor here, and bear with me for a second as I start.
William Bradford, speaking in 1630 of the founding of the Plymouth Bay Colony, said that all great and honorable actions are accompanied with great difficulties, and both must be enterprised and overcome with answerable courage. If this capsule history of our progress teaches us anything, it is that man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined and cannot be deterred. The exploration of space will go ahead. Whether we join in it or not, we mean to be a part of it. We mean to lead it. For the eyes of the world now look into space, to the moon, and to the planets beyond. Our leadership in science and industry, our hopes for peace and security, our obligations to ourselves as well as others, all require us to make this effort, to solve these mysteries, to solve them for the good of all men. There is no strife, no prejudice, no national conflict in outer space as yet. Its hazards are hostile to us all. Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
Some observations from that. What role does Kennedy play?
Vision, sponsor. The vision.
Sponsor. right? Executive sponsor. Somebody who is actually putting a stake in the ground, saying this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. A couple of other things that came out in that speech that I think are very relative to innovation programs, okay? I can't remember his exact words, but he said, if we don't do this, somebody else will. Right? If you don't innovate, if your companies don't innovate, others will innovate around you. So this is why your companies are investing in innovation. If you don't have good executive sponsorship, I encourage you to start to look for ways to build that, to reach out in your organization, to understand why they put your program together in the first place and get that executive sponsorship. You need that cheerleader, you need that person who can help drive the message in your organization, someone who can give you a compelling reason for your existence. Okay? So Kennedy, in doing this, however, also set an overarching goal for the program. Right? What are we trying to achieve? Big, hairy, audacious goal. And he put a stake in the ground, and everything then that NASA did for the next 7 years was measured towards that overall goal. So let's move on, talk about what that means from an innovation program perspective. As you start to build out your programs, okay, build a plan. We have a maturity model, and we've got a version of it up here on the slide. And we recommend that all of our customers start with focus on an engagement. Reach out to your constituents, get them engaged, start to build your program slowly, okay? Start with apps such as Solve, maybe even a couple of the newer apps, Name and Nominate. Those are ones that are easy to get going and will give you some quick wins, some quick successes. Okay? Build a plan to grow your program over time. One of the best examples I've ever seen I actually just saw yesterday, and that is the US Bank, right? They showed a plan where they have challenges going constantly, overlapping, and constantly running. So they're constantly engaging their company to make their products, make their processes, make that company better. Tip number three, sorry. Build your team. So let's take a moment here and let's just look at what the NASA team involved. NASA did not do this on their own for the moon launch. You shouldn't have to do it on your own for your innovation program. Okay? NASA had to reach out across some amazing boundaries to build their team to make that moon launch successful. And some of these, some of the team that they reached out to is really quite surprising. I don't know if any of you knew this, but the US was very dependent upon Russia in the space program that the US was running to beat Russia to the moon. Okay? The Russian Navy was a key component to cover a splashdown in the event that it happened in the certain areas of the Pacific. Okay? So the Russian Navy was very much a partnership of this. Let's talk about what this means. What does your team look like? So I want to open this up. I want to engage some of you now. If some of you can share other areas of your organization that you're reaching out to participate in your innovation program to help you get it rolled out. So, Jennifer, what are you looking at in Flagstaff Bank? What other departments in Flagstaff Bank are you looking at to build out your innovation program to get support for the rollout so that you make sure that you're handling all of the communication, all of the management of the program itself effectively? Who are the other departments you're engaging?
Well, I think our story is a little bit different than what we've been hearing here. We started this whole look at Bright Ideas as a tool to help us started with our employee engagement within IT. So we are from our IT division, and we are trying to come up with ways to answer the kind of the negative feedback we receive through our engagement survey that ideas, we don't know where ideas are going. We've never received feedback on our ideas. I don't even know how to send an idea. So we're really part of the grassroots effort in our organization, our company organization, to get into this idea of innovation and just really getting to the employees and getting their ideas out.
Okay.
So right now it's our extracurricular activity that we do, small team of us that are doing, putting in our little bits and pieces, our little percentages of time that we can get this going to create the need for a team dedicated to this.
Do you feel that you'll call upon other departments within Flagstar Bank to help you in this? Have you thought about that yet in your conversations with Brian?
Yeah, I'll let Lisa talk about her conversations. She had more exposure talking to outside of our team when other areas.
Well, as Jennifer said, we started in IT, and then our service quality team is also interested in it, so we're hoping to partner with them and then grow it bank-wide. We did talk to marketing about how to send out some of the communications to get things rolling, so we have started down that path, but that's as far as we've gotten right now.
So I'm going to play off of marketing. Marketing is just one area that your marketing teams, I would encourage you to engage. You're going to be involved in communication. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Okay. You're going to be reaching out to your employees. You might even be reaching out to your customers. So think about the departments that you have to work through. You're going to be crossing boundaries within your organization. Do not think that you're doing this alone, right? You're going to build a much broader team within your own organization. Okay, tip number 4. Target a killer first challenge. So I want to stop just for a second, and when I say killer first challenge, I'm not talking just a small prototype to test the waters. So for example, you might do a project naming, right, so that you get used to using the application. When you start out of the gate, try and find a challenge that has meaning to your organization, that's solving a problem, that is a pain point or a point of frustration in your organization. So as NASA started down the path towards the moon mission, its first challenge in that path was to send a man into orbit and return him to observe his reactions and return him home safely. They didn't just say, let's just send a rocket to the moon. They had to find a first challenge that had meaning, that helped them start to engage the crowd. I'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. But they targeted a killer first challenge, and they executed on it, okay? So here are some sample challenge statements. I'll talk through a couple of these. I won't read the slide to you. You're perfectly capable of reading it. But in a manufacturing plant, you might say, how might we reduce our byproduct waste by more than 25%? Okay, so waste in manufacturing is a big issue. Okay, you get raw product coming in, you have finished product going out, and you hope that the amount that you're throwing in the trash can or the recycling can is not that large. It gets very expensive if it's large. So that's an example, right, that might be used for a solve challenge. Another one, in a care facility. What amenity or service can we provide that might enhance the resident experience, right? So solicit ideas, right, from within the organization. These are the types of challenges to think about. Look at potentially solving a specific problem. It needs to be something that can be measured. It needs to be achievable. Okay, this is one of my favorites. This is tip number 5. I really should put, this is 1A, 2A, B, the 3A, and so on and so forth. Communication is key. You're rolling out a new program, a new process in your organizations. A lot of your employees will not necessarily know what innovation means. You have to educate them. You have to tell them what you're doing, why you're doing it, what the purpose is, and then you have to keep communicating with them, right? Because if you don't, you'll get the situation where ideas go into a black hole and nobody knows what happens to them. So communication is key. You have to communicate left, right, front, back, in, out, right across the organization, let people know what you're doing, why you're doing it, how they're engaged, and what the feedback's going to be back to them. Okay. So one customer that I've touched recently, I don't think they're in the room, is Quicken Loans. They have an absolutely excellent book that they publish every year. It's called their ISMS book, and it's all about employee engagement, employee communication. This is just some snapshots from it. It's just an example of something that you might be able to do in your organizations. You saw examples yesterday, T-shirts, all of those go to help communication, help engagement. You have to sell your program. Okay, you may not think this, but I think it was Josh from GE yesterday said, you may not realize it, but if you're in the innovation business, you're in the business development business, right? You have to learn, right, to develop interest in your program and engage. And I'll talk about employee engagement in just a second. Okay. Another critical one. Has anyone here tried to launch an innovation challenge yet? Successful? Did you get it out of the gate?
We did.
Okay. Did you have any hesitation that you were ready? Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yes, we've done an innovation challenge, and we just decided to do it. We set up a time frame, and we did it. And it wasn't perfect, but it went well, and I think it did a lot toward making the greater community within the company aware that we were out there and doing things. So.
Awesome. So I'm going to pull on a couple of things that you said. One, you said it wasn't perfect. Don't worry about perfection. So Voltaire said, the perfect is the enemy of the good, right? You're not going to necessarily get perfection. Get your program out there, get your challenge out there. Is the first one going to be perfect out of the gate? No. Is the second one going to be perfect? No. But launch, okay? This goes back to communication. Follow through on your commitment, honor that commitment, okay? And own the errors, own the mistakes, but launch. You've got to get this off the ground. Because if you keep stalling and stalling, you'll never achieve any level of success. So, just to see if I can just generate a little excitement in the audience here.
Engine start. May the wee ones be with you, Thomas. Good Lord, ride all the way. Godspeed, John Glenn. 10, 9, 8, 7.
I think we all know that this one was successful, but NASA wasn't always successful. I think we all know that they had mistakes. They never let that stop them. They always tried to get the next program off the ground, and they went ahead. Oops, sorry. I'll just mute it. I don't think I'd ever played it all the way through. My bad. So, plan a launch event. Set yourself up to where the point is that you cannot do anything but move forward. Okay, have a big announcement, a big splash. This is some clips from a GE launching an innovation contest. Obviously, like their presentation yesterday, high dollars, but plan your launch, put it out there, make an event out of it, make it a spectacle, engage your audience. Okay. So that leads into engage the crowd. NASA in the space program did a fantastic job of this back in the 60s. I just said at the start, as a kid, I watched every single launch. Everybody watched every single launch. They lost that sometime after that lunar. They gained some of it back with the space shuttle program, but they did not manage to keep the crowd engaged after they managed to get the lunar landing. And once they canceled the Apollo program, they've had a PR problem ever since. You need to find ways to engage your crowd, to get them involved in the program, to keep momentum going, to get them excited, to get them behind it, okay? To let them know, sorry for picking on you again, that their ideas are going to go somewhere, that they're going to get a response, okay? So look for ways to engage your crowd, whether that's bringing in donuts, right? And having getting people to submit ideas and get a free donut, right? Put out T-shirts. I think that was another idea that was put out there yesterday. Develop videos, right? Bring people into it. You need to get them to be part of your program. Here's just another example, slightly dated, but another example of launch. This was done online, and this was HP's innovation. So you can engage your crowd through many different means as well. So let's put this into bright idea perspective. I think Kristen put this slide together, but as you go through your challenge, okay, don't let your program become that black hole. Make sure that you're constantly moderating and providing feedback, okay? Use voting. Keep the audience engaged throughout the process. You keep that momentum going, then when you start challenge number 2, which we'll get to in a minute, you'll have that same level of excitement. You'll have that same level of participation. Execute with precision. So I'm going to refer now to a couple of presentations that I was watching this morning. What does precision mean? So for NASA, it was follow all the steps, bring the capsule back to Earth, make sure that everything went exactly as planned, right? And they had mission control in Houston, and everybody was watching every aspect of that. A little bit easier in the innovation space, but as you're going through your program, evaluate the ideas as they come in. Make sure that you're looking at every submission. But most importantly, you heard a couple of people talk this morning about this. Make sure you're measuring, okay? Make sure you're tracking your ROI, your prospective ROI, and then record your outcomes, okay? So ultimately, this is what your programs are going to be measured on. And if there's a benefit that's coming out of this, you need to communicate that up to your sponsors. You also need to communicate it back to the people that generate the ideas so that they know the outcome of the challenges that you're running and the benefits that you bring to them and to the organization. Challenge number 1, successful. Not always. We saw yesterday that US Bank had a few misses, a few challenges that didn't necessarily give them the outcome that they wanted. But let's assume for now that your first challenge is successful. Have your next challenge ready to go. Don't go on pause. Don't say, okay, we did this, what do we do next? While that first one is executing, make sure you're teeing up the second one. If it's the same crowd, keep them engaged. If you're going out to a different part of the organization or a broader subset of the organization, okay, start to get them engaged. Keep that momentum going. It's good for you. It's good for all the people you're reaching out to. But have that next challenge ready. So for NASA, they had many, many different challenges that were part of that lunar program. Okay? They had to improve upon spacesuits, right? The first spacesuits that they had for going up in the capsule were not, they didn't support a lot of mobility for the astronauts. So when Neil Armstrong got on the moon, if he'd been wearing the same spacesuit that John Glenn had, he would have been walking like this. He wouldn't have been able to do anything. So they had to develop new spacesuits in a 7-year span. They had to prove that they could actually get a spaceship to go around the moon. Right? They had to, so have your next challenges ready, build to the overall mission, that overarching goal, and keep momentum going in the program. Okay? Going back to the maturity model that I introduced at the start, and you've seen on our other slides, just look for where you can go. What are other challenges that you can run, that you can move, where you can expand the reach and the benefit of your program? Okay, going to start to wrap up. Kennedy set the overarching goal, we're going to put a man on the moon. You have to constantly remember what your overarching goal is. What are you trying to achieve? What is your organization trying to achieve? And why do you have an innovation program? Think about that in every challenge that you run. Okay? Keep that in front of you. Embrace that long view. Recognize that sometimes it's going to be 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Okay? But keep that forward momentum. Okay? It's like any other program that you would develop in your organization. Okay? And then think beyond that. Okay? Let's just say, for example, that your overarching long-term goal was that you were going to return, let's put GE aside, that you're going to return $10 million to your business over the next 5 years, right? Which would more than pay for a lot of your programs, okay? If you can do that in 5 years or 2 years, whatever goal you set, what can you do in the next 5 years? So think about what NASA is now doing. You have to embrace the really long view. You're not going to get to that without going through the other pieces first, okay? So don't let something like this deter you. You've got to start out and you've got to start small, right? Build yourself up, get that momentum going. But then if I can leave you with one thing here today, it's keep the momentum going, right? Do not just do a challenge and stop and say, sorry, I'll pick that up in a second. And stop and then wait for the next one. Just constantly keep going. This is how your program is going to grow, how you're going to return an investment to the business, right? So you're going to give the business the ROI and how they go. So some of you, I've met some of you, you're in part-time programs. The way to get to a full-time program where you've got a full-time dedicated team is to show some of those quick wins, right? And then you'll actually reach out to other areas of your company. So I'll stop there and open it up for questions. Okay. As I said, it's a fairly dry topic. I understand that, but it's Project Management 101.
Great. So quick question on, so you talked about selecting your first one with your launch.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about identifying or qualifying that first challenge and what we should look for in a good first challenge?
Yeah, I'll answer it, and then I actually also look for Kristen to give her opinion. Look for a pain point in your organization that, or look for something that's frustrating in your organization that that is constantly top of mind, right? No, you don't want to do something where you're trying to boil the ocean, but I talked about the waste in the manufacturing plant as a possible challenge example. There's always ways to either improve process or speed up production, things like that. It could be just providing an additional benefit for a customer, but Kristen,
Yeah, some other things that you might, I've got a mic, thanks Dennis. Some of the things you might think about are thinking about what are the key priorities of the business. So if leadership has recently given a presentation on what the 4 pillars are, or what our new focus is, or why are we losing market share? What is that area of problem or opportunity? Those are great places to mine for potential topics. Another way to go about it is thinking about who the sponsor might be, and then coming into the problem and finding that topic statement that way. So looking for people within the organization who value innovation, who are excited about this new process, and who are willing to fully commit to providing the resources to implement. Because that's the key part of that first challenge is the follow through. So making sure that you have a partner within the business who has both the dollars and the financial resources and is also willing to provide the people to support the challenge in terms of moderation and evaluation.
You've also got to, I want to add just one more thing, you've also got to build up trust, right? Your programs are new, they're new within the companies, and people don't know what they mean, right? So you've got to earn and build up and earn the trust of your employees, right? So that they'll actually know that their ideas mean something, okay? So look for areas of your employee base to engage. I had a conversation at lunch with actually Mike's sitting from, is it Plymouth Tube? Plymouth, okay, got the name of the company right. And we were talking, one area I'm going to tell you to avoid, okay? Avoid taking on a challenge where you're starting to, where your first challenge is engaging maybe a union workforce, okay? Because that brings out all other complexities, right, into that challenge that you may not want to deal with, you may not be ready to deal with, that you'd have to engage other parts of the organization, okay? So try and make it something that you have good management and good control over. Other questions? These can be any questions about starting out a program, running a program. We'll happily open this up and broaden the topic.
So I think it was not a specific goal, but you started off with the JFK sort of executive sponsorship statement,
Yep.
which sort of then got everybody to fall in line underneath them from that point forward, because
Yes.
clearly, he runs the show,
Yep.
so to speak. So any suggestions that you could give in a more of a corporate environment in terms of at what level of an organization that we should look to find the person who could be that executive sponsor who doesn't necessarily need the ambiguity cleared for them, but has that same level of passion that we at a program level may already have, who can help communicate, inspire, and mandate to some degree?
Great question. And the obvious answer is the CEO, right? Right, but that's not always going to happen in your organization. So I actually think this goes to a little bit about what Kristen was just saying. That is, find someone. Maybe you have an executive over a part of the organization, and you just run your first challenge within the confines of that executive's organization, so that you've got, right, first of all, good sponsorship at the top. There are some wonderful, wonderful leaders in this world. If you can find someone who can do 1/10 of what Kennedy did in that speech, right, just to say, this is what we're going to be doing, this is why we're going to be doing it. We don't have Quicken Loans here in this room today, but they have a CEO that inspires just by having conversations like that. So it can only help you to find that person and engage them. At some point, there's an executive, someone who's got budget responsibility, who has signed off on having an innovation program, has talked about why this is important. Maybe go to that person and say, how can I leverage your sponsorship, right, to help drive excitement and engagement in the program?
Some other things that I suggest in that arena are leverage your leaders. So whoever you work for, they're going to have great relationships across the business. So try to leverage those people in terms of connecting with other leaders in the business. Another tip is, if there's a new leader in the organization, that can often be a great person to connect with, because they're looking for how they can make their mark. So how can they demonstrate to the rest of the business that they are doing things to impact the organization and really make some significant impact?
Excellent idea.
So that's a great opportunity to connect with them. And also just general messaging around innovation is, if you can communicate that by participating in these activities, they are going to set themselves into a different category than their peers, that's an opportunity for them to use that as a feather in their own cap. So it doesn't hurt to play up on ego a little bit and let them know that this is going to perhaps help them advance further along in the organization.
Michael, I just wanted to mention one thing. So we were having breakfast this morning. I'm an account manager here at Bright Idea, and many of my accounts aren't GE or Cisco or clients that have been with us for many years and had programs for many years. For a lot of them are in their infancy stage. And what I have seen that helped a lot around engagement is utilizing the status within our company or within the product. So for those who know the Bright Idea system, you can have status updates. So you're giving people an understanding and feedback as you're going through. And I know this was a point that Michael mentioned. So what I've seen in all my clients when they launch a campaign is as they are giving feedback to the idea submitters and those involved, they're bringing them back into the system. So you can be changing those statuses as you're going through, just keeping people feeling engaged. And even simply, I spoke with one client that said, well, when we're done, we put it into a not selected status, for instance. And I've advised some of my clients to make like an idea bank status, meaning, at the end of the day, when you've closed out your campaign, some ideas you cannot, put them forward right now. So put this into an area called Idea Bank. You communicate that back to them so they see, okay, my idea is not being utilized at this manner, but you can have really positive messaging around, thank you for your contribution. We're looking to revisit this at a later stage. And I've seen that as really powerful versus just saying, hey, we didn't select your idea. I mean, put yourself in those idea submitter shoes. That doesn't feel very good, right? So you're wanting to build this engagement. And all of my clients that are utilizing status change are having higher participation and higher engagement. So I just wanted to mention that.
An excellent point, right, as well. And I didn't focus a lot on the software. I focused more on sort of the program level. But, this is a platform that you need if you're going to constantly get ideas from your employees, you need them to be used to using this platform. It doesn't come with training. It doesn't require training. But familiarity is going to help them engage more and use the platform more. So to Dennis's point, the more you can bring them back into it, the more you can engage them, the more likely you are to continue to get that throughput, that river, that stream of ideas.
So you talk about harnessing that momentum and don't pause.
Right.
We've actually contemplated blowing our entire program up after the last 2 days and everything we've heard, and starting from scratch. And so some of what we've been brainstorming is, keeping what's in the pipeline moving forward, but not taking on anything new till, let's say, Q1, so we can truly hunker down and, rebrand, refocus, and relaunch with that big splash that you're talking about. Anything that you'd be concerned about in that approach, or anything that we need to be careful about where that loss of momentum could be more detrimental than moving forward in a temporarily branded space?
No, actually, I kind of like what you're doing. I'm going to keep the customer anonymous. I had a conversation with another customer about innovating their innovation program, right? Disrupting it, right? Blowing it up, starting from scratch, learning from the lessons of others, okay? The only advice I would have, and again, I'll open this up. We've got Kristen here. We've also got Jesse. We've got others in the audience from Bright Idea. The only advice I would have is just communicate what you're doing, right? Communication's key. If people don't know what's going on, then they get suspicious, right? So it's all about openness and trust, right? But I like the idea, right? Be disruptive to yourself.
Yeah. We might need your help, Kristen, because Flip might not like this.
Not a problem. And to build on that, you can use that as an opportunity, though, because you can build momentum by taking the pause. So by letting people know, it's sort of like when the store's opening and you see the signs, and at first you don't even know what it is, and then it's coming soon, and then, we've got these great new things, wait until this. So that can be used to build excitement and build momentum, and it's also a great time to potentially regroup with your sponsors and say, this is what we're doing now. We want to start to build up the pipeline, and even treat it as this is bigger and better, so you better get in line now, because we've got plenty of people coming down the road. So if you want to be the leader that takes advantage of this and that demonstrates that they're a leader and innovative, then you need to come talk to us now, because we're taking orders. So it's a great time to do that. Lindsay, I think you had a question?
Yeah, so my company has started in the last year and a half. There's corporate people that are being tasked with innovation and being challenged to define that role themselves. And there's also in 3 of our businesses R&D centers that have been developed with their own leadership teams that report to their own presidents of their business units. So while I listen to you talk about communication and kind of riling up the troops, it feels really tough to get continuity between the different business units and to do anything as one organization. What tips, I guess, or what tricks do you have for trying to get the innovation leaders on the same page before trying to rally, 20,000 other employees behind that?
First thing that comes to mind is define the boundaries. I mean, in an ideal world, wouldn't it be wonderful if it could all roll up to one innovation team, right? That's the ideal world. But I'm going to assume that's less than likely. Okay. So the business world in which we all operate should not be internally that competitive, right? It shouldn't be us against them. So I think sort of trying to span those boundaries, trying to cross those boundaries, trying to align on sort of general messaging, who does what, I think is critical. And I've heard this from a couple of other customers as well, right? How do we distinguish our innovation program from product R&D, right? Which is also an innovation program in and of its own right, but it's different from the one that we're doing. So I think trying to find those boundaries where what each program is doing, so that you're not treading on toes, and then trying to find even consistent approach, right, as to how you're going to go about it and how you're going to gauge employees. Because if you don't coordinate, you run the risk of you're getting ready to roll out a corporate program, and all of a sudden the product team says, well, you can't touch our employees because in our division, because we're doing one of our challenges with them at this point in time. So I think you've got to work to span those boundaries and try and bring them into the fold and have if nothing else, a common plan, right? And now, Bright Idea would love for you to have a common platform as well, right? But the easier you can make it on the end employee is really what it's all about. Did that answer the question? I don't know if anyone else has.
Mm-hmm. I've got a couple other things. Amanda, not Lindsay, sorry. Sometimes when you're in that situation, when you say, okay, why don't you guys come together and you tell me? So when you have people disagreeing and you force them to talk to one another and make them co-create. Now, sometimes in our positions, we can't invite key leaders to get in one room and provide direction. But if there's perhaps an overarching innovation mission, so everyone is under one umbrella, this is what we as an organization are doing, and then allow people to further define that within each channel or within each BU. So there's still some consistency at a very high level, but they're also sort of taking that overarching mission and then defining it for themselves and how that applies to their own goals and their own issue areas and opportunities, because that is going to differ from BU to BU. That still gives people an opportunity to feel like I am in charge, I do own my own program, my own little mission, but we all roll up to the same pie, so there are some unifying elements, which may be the platform, which may be one core central mission, and then which may be some key boundaries and definitions of what innovation is, but still some room to customize within that. And Jesse, you might have some good tips too, just because I know you work with decentralized organizations too.
Sure. So I'll try and speak loud enough for everybody to hear me, but not so loud that it's hurting your ears here. So I think a nuance of what Michael said about defining the boundaries and also to play off of what Kristen said, your company has a mission, and innovation in your company should kind of have a mission, right? What are you trying to achieve ultimately is to achieve your company's mission. But then as you start to segment up innovation into different business lines, now you can define that same exact thing for these business lines, right? So I was talking to the folks at GM last night after the pianist that played, and they had kind of a similar question, and GM makes vehicles, and so it's kind of like, okay, we need to do transportation for people, but I started then using the example of United Airlines, okay? So United Airlines is also in the business of helping people transport themselves, but when you think about it, United Airlines has to serve people food, they have to entertain people, they have to make sure that they get from one place to another safely, and those are all ways that you're servicing your consumers, and those are all things that you can be innovating on. So as a business, airline industry is not a very profitable industry, but imagine if you got on a United flight and it was the best meal you ever had. Imagine when you go home, if you could buy United meals because you knew that they were so good after you got off the flight, right? So, in that sense, you can start to segment up innovation based on your users or your consumers' needs. And I think as long as you start to define what these innovation missions are, how do we fulfill our users' needs, it becomes very clear where to draw the line between what you're doing and what other groups are doing. A more practical thing that you can do, to Michael's point also, we would love for all of these folks to be using Bright Idea. Potentially consider yourself as a service provider to these other innovation teams. So you have tools and capabilities that they may not have, and vice versa. If you're coming at the discussion from a value proposition, then it's a much easier conversation to have. What can I do for you, right? And then they get on the Bright Idea platform, or whatever other services you may be offering, and then you start to get synergies and you start to work together, right? So hopefully that's a more kind of practical approach and something you can actually set up a plan for.
Right. Yeah, common communication materials, common training, right? There's lots of different opportunities. I think we had another question.
We're just starting out, but Jesse touched on this, but this is one thing that we had looked at because we're coming up with challenges and trying to get ideas, and often we found, well, that project's actually already in flight, or, well, there actually is a team that's already doing that. And so we thought, well, crud, we're running up against these walls, but we still had conversations with the team, and yes, they were in fact doing this project, they were down this, but we started thinking, okay, well, maybe we can help them in some way. You've run up against this particular issue, let's say actually getting the customers to engage with you and call in so we could transfer that type of device, because we're moving off of that technology. We have to get that new device in their home, but we can't shut off their power, so we have to get them to respond. They're not responding. Okay, well, who can we reach out to utilizing the Bright Idea platform to get you some ideas about how you can change your marketing, how you can change your outreach to the customers? So we haven't been able to execute on that yet, again, starting out, but those are the types of things that we were trying to approach, because it's very easy to run into that roadblock of it's already being done, or that's really not in your department. So it's trying to find ways to bridge that.
Yeah, and I think Jesse's suggestion again is fits that as well, and that is, what can we do for you, right? So, right, and set yourself up as a service provider. So,
how do you properly incentivize teams that are burdened with very strong KPIs? So they have their day jobs. They need to focus the majority of time on that. They're already expected to do way too much. The challenge may be sent from the top down, something that's very strategic. You can make it as fun as possible, but still, you talk about driving engagement. How do you do that when they feel a weight on the other side with their existing day jobs? Do you have any suggestions for that?
Well, so let me see if I can maybe phrase that back to you. Just one, so everyone gets the question, and two, so I can make sure I understood it. So you've got people that are contributing to your innovation team, not necessarily people for ideas, but they're part of the team, but it's not necessarily a full-time job for them. And how do you incent them to?
No, I'm talking about participants in the particular challenge,
in the challenges,
not necessarily part of the innovation team.
I'll actually look, I think, to Kristen and Jesse for some sort of more concrete ideas. But for me, it's all about recognition and reward, right? So people want to know that they're being heard, that they're being listened to. And I said a couple of times, you've got to build trust. So I'll tell you how to lose it, okay? And that is take an idea from them and just toss it and not get back to them, right? You'll lose the trust very quickly. But if you turn that and have that communication cycle back, people will feel that they're valued, right? Even if you don't implement their idea, they'll start to feel that their idea was at least heard. So, but Kristen, Jesse?
Yeah, it's a challenge, especially when you have people that are measured very directly on efficiency and deliverables and how quickly did they get this and that sort of thing. So a few things that come to mind include, one is leadership alignment is critical there. So if you're reaching out to an audience, you have to ensure that you have the right person as the sponsor. And that can come up a lot of times when someone brings you a challenge topic idea and you realize when you dig into the problem and the potential solutions, it doesn't really live in their department. That's where you might run into some of those areas. So alignment with the appropriate sponsor is critical, and then connecting down with the management team. So bringing those people in and talking to them about the challenge and saying, look, this is a problem for all of us. We're all going to benefit from getting the solution to this problem. So this needs to be factored into the efficiency, the deliverables, what the team is producing. So this activity should actually be something that gets added in. So it actually becomes another KPI. Like I talked to one company about adding in a job code for innovation. So if people are literally billing their time, which some people have to do, there is one for innovation. So it's not just you're not doing work, but this is actually something that positively contributes to the assessment of the employees as well. But I think that alignment is really, really critical in that instance. And then, as Michael said, also balancing that out with really positive opportunities for those people that are participating. Jesse, do you have any other thoughts on that area? It's a tough one for sure.
Sorry, let me address you. To be honest, I would just kind of reiterate what Kristen has just said. So a lot of times when you're dealing with contract employees or consulting organizations or people whose utilization is really important to the company, and you need to get them as utilized as possible to squeeze out as much profits as possible. This is a real challenge, and I feel like throwing money at the situation, putting out prizes, putting out rewards, having an awesome challenge topic, some of these things are not going to help you surmount this issue of utilization. But I think you need to question, if people are not granted the time for this, have we done the level of change management that's required in the organization to actually deploy a program like this, right?
Yeah.
If you're asking people to participate and they really don't have the time, or they're not permitted, or they don't have the right organizational incentives, I think you need to go back to executives who manage the program and really have a candid conversation with them and say, we're not going to get this to work. Like, first of all, use everybody's successes that you've met here today. And demonstrate that this can actually be done and generate value, but have a candid conversation with them and say, look, we're not going to get this to work if we don't chop out a little bit of people's time to be able to participate in this program.
Yeah, it's one of those classic examples of a mandate coming from leadership saying, be more innovative, but I'm not going to give you any tools or permission to do it. So as Jesse was talking, I was thinking the exact same thing, that it really deserves to be a conversation that gets leveled up. So C-level executives are talking to each other and saying, if we really want this to happen, there are certain things that we need to equip our people with, and you can look up change management stuff, and there are various charts that have 7 things or 9 things, and it's tools, it's resources, it's time, it's training. So there are different areas that everyone needs to be supplied with, equipped with, in order to effectively participate. And it's only going to be a lose-lose if you ask people to participate in challenges and then they get penalized in the end for doing that. It's going to kill any momentum that goes along with that. Go ahead.
And if you get pushback on this, flip the script and say, why don't we run a challenge on how to get more utilization out of people? Right? And how can you say no to that, right? That puts, it puts the situation in reverse. You're trying to help them get more efficiency, right? So.
And I think we just have another.
Oh, sorry, it was related to that, but you answered it a little bit already. We're about to launch our first real challenge, and we don't have a history of being able to show, here's how we recognize people. Yes, we can try to get the right sponsor, but I kind of had a similar question around incentive or motivation for the first challenge, because people don't really know what to expect or why to do it if they've never seen anyone else get recognized for it. Yeah.
So you're looking at it just for participation to get the ideas in.
Yeah.
You can do it for $100, right? $100 gift certificate to wherever, dinner certificate, and everyone who submits an idea goes into a drawing. You can do stuff like that. It doesn't have to cost you a lot of money if you're trying to just find ways, right? I mean, Jesse had a point, you can't just throw money at it,
Right.
but little things like that will help. And if you have, I've had a couple of conversations with customers since I've been at Bright Idea, and if you're starting an innovation program to solve an employee engagement issue, the innovation program alone is not going to solve that employee engagement issue, right? You've got a bigger, broader issue to resolve, but it can help drive that engagement, right? So it can be a component of solving it. So if you're trying to get people to participate, just something relatively inexpensive like that, I think can start to trigger some ideas coming in, even if a lot of them end up being sort of junk ideas that you can put aside. But you want to create that stream, and it's momentum, right? You want to get the ball rolling.
Something else you might think about, because I know your organization is a membership sort of an organization, so it's different from an employee structure, is what's going to be a value add for the people that are participating. So it could be recognition, but maybe beyond that you offer something like innovation training. So people that participate that meet the thresholds that you're looking for get 2 hours of consultation time from you on how to innovate their own personal business, their own farm, their own sort of operations. So it can be recognition, it can be incentives, but it can also be how can you allow them to do their work better and more efficiently, because we often offer innovation trainings as an incentive for people. So learning how to brainstorm better, or learning how to do continuous improvement, or sorts of things that people will want outside of just the challenge that you're operating. And I think we're a few minutes over.
We are. So I'm going to wrap. The first thing I want to say is, first of all, thank you all for coming. I'll happily stay here. I know Kristen will and Jesse will, to sort of answer any questions, or if you want to take some more time, afterwards. The last thing I'll leave you with, right? Obviously, we're consultants. We have a services organization. We're certainly always available. Sometimes the outside voice is better than the inside voice. But it also does not have to be Bright Idea consultants. We have partners and we have other consultants in our ecosystem that you can also call upon, right? And even some of your own internal consulting organizations can help you drive through and answer some of these questions. So with that, we'll wrap. I thank you very much for staying this afternoon. And I thank Jesse and Kristen and Dennis for their help in doing the heavy lifting and answering the real tough questions. So thank you.